This is Defining Moments, an interview series about the moments that make us who we are. I'm your host, Jessica Hubbard.
And I am interviewing Mr. Ethan Burwell. Now, Ethan, you are a student here in the Atmospheric Science Department at Cornell, correct?
That is correct. I am a senior in the Atmospheric Science Department.
Okay, now with atmospheric science, I know we both know this, is that most people who are into the weather because of a specific story or specific moment. And you've told me yours a few times, but let's tell the viewers about how you got into weather because I think it's very fascinating.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, you're totally right, Jess. There are key moments. I think for me, it was actually a chain reaction of events that really has helped to drive it especially strong for me. So my first solid weather memory is the aftermath of Hurricane Isabel in 2003 and reading about that in the papers. At the time, I was 11, going on 11 years old. I wasn't even 11 yet. I was 10, about to turn 11. So that's my first real memory.
Do you mind me asking, with Hurricane Isabel, was there any specific damage or was it, like, how did it make an impact? Because I know most people, when they remember hurricanes, like Hurricane Sandy is a big one with a lot of flooding up north, Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. How did that make an impact on you?
Well, for me, the storm itself was definitely damaging for a lot of people across the Carolinas and Virginia. But for me itself, it was almost like a glossing over point. Like, had there not been events after that, it's one of those memories that I could have just totally dismissed because I only remember the headlines from the paper. That's the first real time I remember noticing the weather. The following winter, so that happened in October-ish, September, October. But the following winter is when it really took off for me. That winter, I basically tracked every single piece of weather that moved across the country. I remember sitting in front of the television in the living room as an 11-year-old. I found a big 3x5-foot map of the United States. It was all folded and crinkled. It was a road map. And I remember sitting in the living room in front of the television with the Weather Channel playing 24/7 and just updating the weather patterns that I saw on my map on the floor.
Oh, wow.
So I would use like different colored Legos and pieces of paper to represent the weather that I saw. So like a green Lego would be rain, white would be snow, red would be severe, and even yellow was the fog that they used. Very classic maps on the Weather Channel. And just sitting there day after day sort of integrated that into my personality because that was a whole winter. That was 2003 into 2004, and I started writing down when it would snow and how much it would snow. Yeah, so that was really the solid beginning.
But what's interesting about you, though, is that you went to community college before you came to Cornell. Tell me about your time when you were at community college, because I know there you didn't do anything with meteorology specifically, correct?
That is actually correct.
Mm-hmm.
You're correct on both fronts. After that winter season, it sort of carried...
Weather pun! Sorry, I had to. Okay. Anyways, continue.
After that winter, it really began to integrate into my personality. I began not only following the winter seasons, but the hurricane seasons. I have to mention this because it's really important. So after that first winter season was the hurricane season of 2004.
What's special about that?
That was, up until that point, the most damaging season ever for an Atlantic hurricane season.
Wow. Was there any specific storms that you remember from that season?
Honestly, Jess, I remember all the storms from that season. Alex was the first hurricane I tracked in July. We had Bonnie, Charlie, Danielle, Earl, Francis, Gaston, Hermine, Ivan, Jean, Carl, Lisa, Nicole, Otto, and Nicole, all the way through the end of December. And that was a high-impact season. That key year, had a lot of momentum, and I was already riding that weather wave, and that just really pushed me into it. So for the next couple of years, I continued to keep track of local snowfalls in my hometown, as well as following these hurricane seasons. That got me through middle school and high school, lots of weather memories along the way. But like you said, I did get to community college. And to high school, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew I was interested in weather, but for me, it had always just been something that was fun, that I just loved to do. And I didn't know if I really wanted to pursue this as a full-time career. I didn't want to lose that fun aspect of it.
That's a very interesting view of it, and like a lot of people with meteorology as well is that it's it's a competitive job field. So most people are kind of not deterred from going into that studies, but it's always like an aspect of it. Now, going from community college to Cornell, what made you interested in Cornell? Because I know not a lot of colleges actually have this major. What made you decide to come and apply here with your 2 degrees? One was in math, correct? And the other was in nursing.
Yeah, so like I said, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I did the first year of that math degree, and then halfway through it, I decided, hey, I have enough credits to overlap with the nursing. That's a reliable job. It's something that I'm interested in the human impacts of society, which goes hand in hand with the weather, actually. So I did do 2 degrees, one in math, one in nursing. The one solid thing that I learned in community college was it doesn't really matter where you end up going. It depends on what you want to do. And for me, that was a big revelation because I really didn't want to go to community college. I was against it from the start. But in those 3 years, I really came out with a different perspective. Cornell was able to come through in accepting me and giving me a decent financial support. And that made a big difference for me.
And here you're at Cornell. Are you doing a lot with weather now? Are you following your passion?
You know, Jess, I believe I am following my passion. Getting started in the department was a much different perspective on meteorology than I'd been used to. Before, I was pretty much learning off the cuff just as I went along. But here is much more structured, much more math and physics-based, knowing the actual equations that determine the weather that we see around us. And for me, that was a little bit of a put off at the start. I just really wanted to forecast and learn how do I apply this in real life. But over the past year or so, I've been able to find a niche within here. For me personally, that's been a lot of education outreach. I got into weather when I was in middle school. So over the past year, I've been able to work with elementary school students and middle school students, actually teaching them lessons about the weather at local schools. And I've been able to invite other members of the department along for that journey. This way they could share in that, that knowledge transfer of what we're both all passionate about.
Oh, wow. From colorful Legos on a paper map to being at Cornell and influencing so many others. Ethan, thank you for your interview. It was a very interesting story. That's why
You're welcome, Jess. I'm glad I could share.
Yes, thank you so much.